director of the Natural Solutions Foundation. This is the fourth in a series of films about how to protect yourself from radiation. They are posted on YouTube at our Natural Solutions channel, and they are posted at www.tinyurl.com/RadProtect. Why do you need to protect yourself from radiation at this time? Well, because Fukishima and now 5 other nuclear reactor stations in Japan have been leaking radiation. Fukushima, of course, the coastal city on the eastern coast of Japan, was struck by a 9.0 Richter scale magnitude earthquake and then an enormous tsunami. There are multiple reactors at Fukushima which are emitting enormous amounts of radiation. In fact, according to some reports from Japan, there's no way to measure the amount of radiation that they're leaking or emitting because the instruments simply peg out. And it's so dangerous for people to get close enough to measure that we can only estimate. We're talking about many, many times worse than Chernobyl, an industrial accident, if it was an accident, which is contaminating the United States, Canada, Mexico, Europe, Russia, China, the entire northern half of planet Earth. Now, as the fallout is carried by the jet stream and reaches the Aleutian Islands and the Alaskan coast and then the west coast of the Canadian and United States and northern Mexico land masses, and then moves from west to east and then moves out across the Atlantic Ocean, circling the globe. Of course, there is an attenuation because some of the fallout falls out. What falls out is iodine-131. Iodine has many radioactive isotopes, but most people are familiar only with iodine-131. Cesium-137, plutonium, americium, uranium. These may be unfamiliar names to you, but they're deadly nonetheless. Let's take a moment to talk about the nature of a radioactive isotope. The nucleus has subatomic particles, of course, neutrons, protons, other subatomic particles. When a nucleus emits a burst of energy from itself, you have nuclear radiation. You have ionizing radiation. That is totally different from chemical pollution. It's totally different from electromagnetic pollution because the molecule itself, which is emitting the particle from its nucleus, combines in chemical reactions exactly the way non-radioactive molecules do. That's why I-131 can seat itself in the thyroid, which accumulates iodine, because the body has no way of telling the difference between radioactive iodine and non-radioactive iodine. But once seated in the body, a radioactive isotope emits energy which causes free radical cascades, which causes damage to the membranes of the cell, which causes DNA damage, and all of the long-term damage from the radioactive isotope follows from that fact. There is a difference in having an airborne level of contamination and having a body-borne level of contamination. Because once those radioactive elements are in your body, they get woven into the very fabric of your body's structure. So, for example, strontium-90 or cesium-137, radioactive isotopes of strontium and cesium, either replace other elements or they are used in the way the body is accustomed to use them. For instance, you need strontium for your bones. What you don't need is radioactive strontium for your bones. Now, there are many ways to look at what's happening, because you see, it doesn't end. It isn't a one-time explosion. It's ongoing, day by day, minute by minute, second by second. The amount of radiation is enormous. There are 4 basic types of radiation involved here. There's alpha, beta, gamma, and neutron radiation. They're all bad for you. Now let's talk about some of the things that you can do. Well, you can drink miso soup, which is produced from non-radioactive fermented soy and non-radioactive seaweed. You can use rosemary, you can use resveratrol, you can use boron, you can fill your receptor sites in your body for iodine with non-radioactive iodine, so there's no place for the radioactive iodine to park. But if you live in the United States, Canada, Mexico, Europe, Russia, China, you're eating radioactive food, because the rain, the snow, drives the fallout down onto the ground, where it contaminates the growing matrix, the soil, from which the grass grows that cows are fed, from which the vegetables grow that you eat, from which the hay grows that animals eat, the corn, the chicken feed, whatever it is that plants and animals use to grow and therefore provide you your food with, is radioactive. The water is radioactive, increasingly so. The United States government has ceased to monitor these things in a reasonable, useful way, because they don't want to find the answer out and then have to tell you the truth. Canadian government, exactly the same. So we're looking at a contaminated food supply, increasingly contaminated. We're looking at a contaminated milk supply, increasingly contaminated. We're looking at a contaminated water supply, increasingly contaminated. There are, within the world of radioactive particles, 2 subgroups. Uranium-237 is the basis upon which virtually all nuclear reactors are built. There are a few plutonium-enriched nuclear reactors, like reactor number 3 at Fukishima, and they have extra plutonium. But once uranium starts to break down, it goes to lead. Lead is poisonous, but at least it's not radioactive and poisonous. However, in the course of nuclear reactors acting, they produce what are called transuranium elements. These elements do not occur naturally. They include americium, curium, plutonium. They have long half-lives. They are exceedingly toxic, and they are exceedingly dangerous. Your body has 0 mechanisms available to handle these heaviest of heavy metals. Your body has a mechanism to excrete small amounts of mercury, although mercury is exceedingly toxic. Your body has a mechanism to excrete small amounts of arsenic, although arsenic is very toxic. But these transuranium elements, your body has never encountered in nature. and therefore you have no mechanism to excrete them, so they collect in your body. How dangerous are they? Well, epidemiologists and environmental medicine scientists know that one molecule of plutonium gives you a 100% chance of developing cancer where that molecule has lodged to do its damage. And we never get one molecule of anything. These are exceedingly dangerous. Now, I want to shift focus for a moment and talk about chelation. Chelation. Chelation is a chemical process whereby a molecule that has the capability to do so bites another molecule, hangs onto it with the tenacity of the claw of a crab. So in honor of that strong bond that the chelating substance makes with the molecule that it grabs onto and does not let go, the process by which molecules are bound in that way is called chelation. Now, from a medical point of view, chelation is enormously important. There's a great deal of information about the use of chelation to repair whole body cardiovascular disease, to act as an anti-aging technique, to cure, and I do not say assist in the cure of, I say cure, osteoporosis safely, efficiently, and rapidly. It's an anti-cancer treatment. It's many wonderful things. It's also demonized because the widespread use of chelation would undermine and undercut one of the two financial cash cows that keep the medical system of the allopathic world afloat, and that is cardiovascular treatment and bypass surgery. Allopathic cardiovascular treatment and bypass surgery generate vast amounts of money. They don't work particularly well, but they are very profitable, and therefore the chief competitor, nutrition, and the second competitor, chelation, are both badly vilified. Nonetheless, I am a chelating physician, and there are many other chelating physicians. The chelating substances bind to pathological metals. You may or may not know it, but calcium is considered a nutritional metal, and it's the most abundant of the ions in your bloodstream. You need it for bones, you need it for teeth, you need it for cellular processes. Very, very important substance. But it can pile up in your arteries and become part of the plaque that can narrow your arteries and lead to vascular problems, that can lead to premature aging because oxygen is not getting to cells and waste products are not being removed from cells. It can lead to high blood pressure. It, in the wrong place, is not a good thing, and that's true of almost anything. But there are some toxic metals like mercury, which are never good to have, and chelation will remove mercury. It will remove arsenic. It will remove any number of toxic metals like cadmium and nickel. Well, chelation is either done orally with substances like EDTA, ethylene diamine tetraacetic acid, a semi-synthetic amino acid, and that's generally not particularly effective. A lot of people take a lot of oral chelation agents, and they, in my understanding and experience, pretty much don't work. They also can take chelation intravenously, which is how I prefer to use it, or they can use rectal suppositories, which introduce EDTA through the mucosa of the rectum into the bloodstream, and they get some pretty good results. Now, what does this have to do with radiation? Well, we know that the transuranium toxic heavy metals, like plutonium, can be removed through chelation. We know that through a study that was done at Los Alamos some years ago, in which people who had had open wounds contaminated with plutonium were treated with chelating agents, one treatment. The amount of plutonium in their bodies was reduced 50-fold. That's a pretty good efficiency rating. Nonetheless, we're not hearing a lot about chelation for radiation poisoning. First of all, the United States government and the Canadian government and the Japanese government are lying through their collective dentures because they're saying no harm to human health. To which my response is, didn't their mothers tell them it's a sin to lie? And when they're lying to entire populations who will die from their lies because they will not take necessary precautions and measures, and they will not protect themselves and their children, it's not just a sin, it's a crime against humanity. However, the truth is that you are being contaminated if you live in the northern part of the planet Earth. And one of the things that you need to know is that Japan will be approving 2 chelating agents on July 1st for the removal of plutonium. Now, we know from knowing about the chemistry of chelating agents and the chemistry of the transuranium elements that if it removes plutonium, it will remove uranium. It will remove americium. It will remove the other transuranium elements. What about the non-transuranium elements like cesium-137, like strontium-90, like all the other radioactive elements that are being produced, spewed into the air, driven down into the soil, the water, and on the surfaces of the environment to be breathed, to be swallowed, to be incorporated into the body? What about all of those? What will chelation do for them? Chelation will remove those elements that do not belong in your body. Will it remove all of them? Probably not. Will it remove many, 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 many-fold the contamination that you have gotten and are getting? Yes, it will. Now, how do you get chelated? Well, the first thing that you do is you make sure that you are eating the kinds of nutrients like uncontaminated seaweed, sea vegetables, that actually help your body remove the contaminants. That's not enough. It's good, but not good enough. The second thing you do is you make contact with a doctor in your area who is a member of one of the following organizations: the American Academy of Environmental Medicine, and their website is www.AAEM.com. The second organization is the American College for the Advancement of Medicine, www.acam.org. And you look for the physician locator, and you talk to a physician in your area. Schedule a consultation, ask the doctor to come and do a lecture at your church or your social club or your PTA, because your children are being contaminated as well as you. And the results of radioactive contamination are, of course, cancer. We know that. Of course, infertility. We know that. But most people don't know that every system, every organ in the body is susceptible to failure and disease. For instance, neurological atrophy. That means the brain shrinks and gets smaller. And if it gets smaller, what do you think happens to the function of the brain? What do you think happens to the ability of children to think and to learn, and to your ability to think and to learn? Well, you're right. They will decrease. And Those processes are exceedingly difficult to reverse. Diabetes, immune system compromise. And by the way, one of the things that you need to do is have nanosilver on board. I suggest that you lay in a good supply of silver sol, because nanosilver is the universal antibiotic. It will kill parasites, funguses, bacteria, mycoplasm, viruses that are capable of making you sick, but will not kill the beneficial bacteria and other organisms. Remarkable universal antibiotic. Have it available. If your immune system is compromised, you have less ability to fight infections. You need more help. You need to take resveratrol. You need to take boron. You need to take iodine, but not take chronic doses of potassium iodide. That's a pharmaceutical level dose, and it's not meant for long-term administration. It will make you sick. It's meant for short-term preventive administration. On the other hand, taking something like emerald sea will in fact keep your iodine levels high and will give you the natural compounds that are present in clean, unadulterated sea vegetables that help prevent radiation damage. Organic whey increases the amount of your body's glutathione, your primary free radical scavenger. You need vitamin C. You need many, many components to keep yourself safe. But the reality is that these wonderful nutritional measures will help, but are not sufficient for a continuing second-by-second onslaught. Every time you eat food that's grown on the North American landmass, you're eating contaminated food. Every time you drink water, you're drinking contaminated water. Your children are out in the weather and they're being contaminated if they get wet in the rain. How do you keep children from getting wet or going swimming? This is absurd. So making sure that you are meeting the continuing and escalating radiation challenge, should you choose to stay in the North American landmass, is a job just like making sure that your bills are paid, or your children get to school on time, or there's fuel in your car so that you can get to work. It has become a life support requirement. To repeat, chelation is now being recognized as the excellent radiation metal removing procedure that it is. 3 kinds of chelation. Oral chelation is rarely effective. There are effective products, but they are very uncommon, and you need to ask for clinical studies if you decide to try an oral chelation protocol, and those studies need to be very, very rigorous, because the truth is most oral chelation products do not work because the EDTA is destroyed by the natural action of the stomach, so you're essentially getting no chelating effect. The second way is to use a rectal suppository with EDTA in it. And the third and best is to do periodic intravenous chelation treatments. They are safe, they are effective, they are, considering the odds that they are giving you to not get cancer and the other radiological poisoning conditions that the radiation exposes you to, they're really quite inexpensive. I would strongly suggest that you investigate a chelating physician and that you set up a program of health care for yourself and for your children. The radiation isn't going away. Last I heard, the Japanese government and TEPCO said that they were going to begin the process of entombment of the now 5 radioactive failed reactors in 2015. Your life is being damaged. Your survival is being damaged, and it's up to you and to me to take control of our health and to demand the treatments. Maybe we should demand from the insurance system that they pay for this treatment. Maybe not. But the fact remains that this is a life-saving procedure that you need to know about and you need to consider. There's also the life-saving procedure of getting out of Dodge and finding a place to go in the Southern Hemisphere. Many of you know that the Natural Solutions Foundation has a boots-on-the-ground eco-demonstration project in Panama. You can go to www.naturalsolutionsfoundation.org for more information. That may not be the right answer for you, but you should start thinking very seriously about what it means if you continue to live in a place that is increasingly radioactive day by day by day. Radioactivity is not a matter of belief, it's not a matter of conjecture, it's not a matter of politics, it's not a matter of religion, it's a matter of cold, hard science. You either are being contaminated or you're not. And if you live on the North American landmass, and if you eat food that comes from the North American landmass, then I am afraid you are being contaminated. It's worth your while to spend a good deal of effort decontaminating yourself and knowing that you'll need to do that for a goodly long time to protect your health and your children's. It's not happy news, but having the information allows you to take control of your health, your destiny, your future, and own your own body. That's what health and freedom require. And health, freedom is your first and most fundamental freedom. This is Rima E. Laibow, the Medical Director of the Natural Solutions Foundation. I thank you for your attention.